Hello and welcome to a special Las Vegas Grand Prix edition of Driver Seat Plug Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. I wasn't going to do any more on the Las Vegas Grand Prix, but given all the horse shit that's come out after I uploaded the last episode, I have to cover this. Now, there's going to be a number of stories, all of which will have links in the description, and our first story is from Planet F1, and the stupidity on display here is just amazing to me. It's just amazing to me. So from the link from Planet F1, according to Ross Brown, who left Formula One management ahead of the 2022 season, but who had been around for initial talks regarding the Las Vegas Grand Prix, no one in Formula One seemed to realize it might actually get pretty cold in Nevada at night in November. Quote, the one thing we hadn't considered initially, but the tire company had dealt with, said it gets very, very cold at night. So when the race is happening, which is Saturday night, it has been known to drop down to 3 or 4 degrees. So it can be really quite cold, and of course getting the cars to work in these temperatures can be a challenge. The tire companies have done some work to make sure the tires can cope with that. We're definitely facing some new challenges we've never had before, but I think it'll be pretty spectacular. Let me ask a sincere question. How do you not know this? People, let me quote Carlos Mencia. There is no up without down. There is no day without night. There is no God without a devil. It's been very, very well established that deserts, which are known to get very hot during the day, also get very cold during the night. This isn't rocket science, it's general knowledge. And the stupidity here is amazing because Formula One couldn't connect the dots, but they race in desert countries on a regular basis. Look, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, do you really not have people go outside at night in these desert climates? What the hell? How do you fuck that one up? They race in desert countries. They couldn't figure out that desert areas get cold. Go figure. Now, let's talk about the ticket sales. Because according to Oversteer48.com, there were, at least of November 8th, quote-unquote, tens of thousands of unsold tickets, some of which were discounted as much as 46%. The author cites 3 reasons as to why the tickets are very heavily discounted at this point, because he specifically states that, quote, the surge in F1 popularity in the U.S. thanks to Drive to Survive is reigning after 5 seasons. This season specifically, Max Verstappen and Red Bull have already won the 2023 World Championship, which will undoubtedly dominate the race. Part of that statement was true. And this is my favorite one, by the way. The tickets are the most expensive tickets Formula One ever released. You don't make the expensive, as it starts to rain, you don't make the expensive tickets like Monaco or the British Grand Prix or the Japanese Grand Prix. You put it at an untested venue that's already up to its neck in controversy to begin with. Now, does the fact that these tickets are falling come as a surprise? No. But the discounts are still expensive. One of the discounts was a 26% discount, and the ticket is still $1,701. And again, a lot of these tickets also included tickets for free practice, and this will play into how the practice sessions went, so keep that in the back of your mind. Now we get to the race weekend itself. The Saturday night race itself went very well. I actually think it could have been a lot worse than it was. The lead-up was a much different story. Max Verstappen said he felt that the race was, quote, 99% show, 1% sporting event. Now, this particular comment divided a lot of people. I say that, you know what, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every once in a while. And I challenge anyone to look at the lead-up to the start of the race, and when I mean the start of the race, I mean when the lights go out. Try not to see it as a pageantry show. Now, for Las Vegas, it makes sense. Number one, they are the city of shows and pageantry and neon lights and blah, blah, blah. But there's another reason that I think they're going all in on this. because they have been for years trying to shed the casinos, prostitutes, and mafia reputation that they've had for years. And even if they get rid of it all, the reputation's not going anywhere, folks. And again, F1 is not exactly unknown for spectacles, but this was excessive even for them. And from a real racing fan who just wants to watch the race, the pageantry was both annoying, pointless, time-consuming, and expensive. And you didn't really need it on the level that it was. Now we get to the main event. The practice session fiasco. The first practice session was a shit show. To quote Wikipedia, link in the description, quote, the first free practice session was held on November 16th at 8:30 p.m. local time. It was red flagged after Carlos Sainz stopped on the track due to hitting a loose metal cover on the track surface. The session was abandoned. Charles Leclerc was ahead of Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen. Sainz's car floor was damaged extensively, as well as Esteban Ocon's. The damage caused to Sainz's energy store resulted in him having to take a third unit outside of the two permitted. This led to Sainz receiving a 10 grid penalty for the race. Okay, we'll get back to that in just a second. I don't think in this situation a penalty is fair. I could understand in certain situations where if a team is intentionally using more than the allotted units, that's one thing. But if a piece of the track comes off, damages the car, and forces them to use one, I think that one should be ignored. But it is what it is. Anyway, following the curtailed back to the description, following the curtailed first practice session, fans were ejected from the venue at 11:30 local time. Excuse me. Due to that, the second practice session was held without many fans in the grandstands. The organizers of the event gave out merchandise vouchers worth $200 to the in-circuit store, which led to legal action being launched by Nevada-based law firm JK Legal and Consulting. The second free practice session was held on November 17th and was scheduled for midnight, but it was extended from 60 to 90 minutes and was delayed by 2.5 hours while the issues from the first free practice session were rectified, and it was topped by Leclerc ahead of Sainz and Fernando Alonso. Now, fans were pissed, and justifiably so. Again, I talked about how expensive these tickets are. If you're buying tickets and they include free practice tickets, you should be able to watch all free practices. Now, the Las Vegas circuit and Formula One, both realizing they're screwed, issued a following statement to try to cover their asses. It's probably not going to work. I'm going to read this statement in its entirety. Our top priority at Formula One is the safety and security of our drivers, employees, and fans. Responsibility for the oversight of a Formula One event falls with Formula One as well as the commercial rights holder of the sport. The FIA is the regulatory body of the local promoter, in this case the Las Vegas Grand Prix. This is important for those who are new to racing to understand. Last night, approximately 9 minutes into the first free practice session, a water valve cover broke on the straight on Las Vegas Boulevard. Now, I'm going to pause it right here. If you recall, I talked about the certification for the track, and I believe I said something along the lines of, they'd better make sure that all of these street hole covers and manhole covers had better be tightened down, taken care of. Well, apparently they weren't. And apparently this was also an issue that had been discussed prior to this. Anyway. Last night, approximately 9 minutes into the first free practice session, a water valve cover, blah, blah, blah. At that time, the FIA, which is responsible for the safe running of the activities on the circuit, stopped the session so that we could look at the broken water valve cover and inspect the track. This has happened on occasion at other tracks, at other races around the world. The precautionary step of removing all of the water valve covers on the track and filling them with sand and asphalt was undertaken. The entire process from determination of the issue to remediation took approximately 5 hours. The decision to remediate in this way was taken out of an abundance of caution and because of the safety of the drivers. Trackside marshals, officials, and our fans is always our highest priority. We thank the contractors who worked expeditiously to resolve the situation quickly. As a result, the first free practice ended early. We moved ahead with the second free practice session at approximately 2:30 a.m. Pacific time for 90 minutes. The decision to run the second free practice session at 2:30 a.m. was supported by all parties to ensure the integrity of the remainder of the event. We would like to thank the drivers, mechanics, and all the teams for their patience and commitment to last night to ensure that we could run the session successfully. Now let's turn to the fan experience. The delay in the start of the second free practice session was from midnight to 2:30 a.m. Pacific time, created risks for our employees and fans. We made the decision to close the fan areas that are under the Las Vegas Grand Prix purview at 1:30 a.m. Pacific time and send the fans home early. Let me explain why. First, we were concerned about our public safety and security officials who had been in service for a long time and were being asked to work for the next 3 nights. We'd like to thank Clark County's trademark. Where's our trademark here? Anyway, we'd like to thank Clark County's Metro Police Department, the Public of Public Works, and other public safety officials for their incredible support during the event and also as we reopened the track early this morning. Second off, now before we go on, I want to say that this is one of the few points I actually agree with, and I'll discuss it in a few minutes. Second, we were concerned about the transportation employees who are responsible for driving our fans back to the hotels. By federal law, they were bumping up against the amount of time they could legally and safely drive buses. Now, that sounds kind of weird, but I know a few people who attended WrestleMania in New York and have attended WrestleMania in other public venues, and they've had issues getting back to the hotel when the buses and trains just stop running before the event's over. So having the fans being able to get back to the hotel, okay, I'll give you that one. Going back to the statement. Finally, our hospitality staff needed the ability to clean and resupply our guest areas to ensure that the fan experience is optimal for everyone all the coming days. We know this is disappointment, and we hope our fans will understand, based on this explanation, that we had to balance many interests, including safety and security of all participants and the fan experience over the whole race weekend. We've all gone to concerts. We've all gone to events like concerts, games, and other Formula One races that have been canceled because of factors like weather or technical issues. It happens, and we hope people understand. So how will we address this tonight? We have worked overnight to adjust our staffing plans across security, transportation, and hospitality to ensure we can function and serve fans the best possible experience in the event of an extended racing schedule. We are excited about the racing today and thank our entire team and our fans for their support. We know this is going to be a great event. With that, let's get back to racing. Again, I don't understand why this shit wasn't figured out prior to free practice 1. I would have been okay with this with the Chicago street race, because even if you only have to shut down an area for a few days, there's still going to be factors that you're going to miss, whether or not it's intentional or not. And I think that if something like that had happened, it would have been understandable. But here, they were working on this shit even in like March, I think. What was it? March, April, all of this shit started? You mean to tell me that you've had between March and April to mid-November, and you weren't able to look at your water valve covers on the track that you're racing to figure out, maybe we should make adjustments here? You worked, months and months and months, millions of dollars spent making this into a track, and you're focusing more on the fan experience than you are making sure that valve covers don't randomly break and cause damage to cars. What the fuck? Now, as I said, the race itself wasn't too bad, but nobody's talking about the race itself. The whole lead up to the event, and I mean up until the lights went out, was a disaster. And by the way, these aren't my words. These are the words of Katie Dowd of the San Francisco Gate. Most locals agree with this assessment, with Dowd adding, quote, "It'll take weeks to undo the F1 configuration, with officials hoping that things will return to normal by Christmas." What the fuck? And you know what? To conclude this, I would like to issue a sincere apology to the organizers of the Chicago Street Race. I really would. I've talked a lot of shit about how I thought the Chicago Street Race was being planned and how I thought it was going to go. But you know what? In all honesty, I actually was convinced that the Las Vegas Grand Prix would go perfectly since they appeared to have a plan, were getting their shit together, and I thought the Chicago Street Race would be a logistical disaster because they were sort of winging it. The polar opposite of what I predicted took place. The street race went up. The weather was an issue, but that's par for the course. The weather was an issue, but there weren't any real major issues. They kept the Chicago citizens weren't happy, but they at least tried to keep the disruption to a minimal amount. With Vegas, everything just went tits up from the moment the weekend occurred, from like weeks out from the weekend occurred, if not months out. I sincerely thought that the Vegas Grand Prix was going to go perfectly, the Chicago Street Race was going to end in disaster. I was wrong, and I owe the organizers of the Chicago Street Race a sincere apology. Oh, and if you think anybody in Las Vegas thinks that this might be over now, guess what? This race is a 10-year contract. You got 9 more years of this shit. Good luck, everybody. You're going to need it. And with that, this special edition of Driver Seat Block Radio comes to an end. I will see you on Friday for the next episode.